Hi everyone, I'm Sam, owner of Titanium Archery Products. Today we are going to do a look at a complete replacement fastener kit swap on a PSE Sicario bow. This is their brand new model that they released, carbon riser. I'm going to use this as the example for illustration so you can look at the different parts. I can talk about the techniques involved and explain what we're giving you as opposed to the factory fastener. Now, of course, the factory parts on this bow and on many of the PSE model bows are alloy steel. Alloy steel can rust, and it often does. So we're giving you titanium alloy, which not only doesn't rust, it is also lighter than a counterpart steel. So we are mixing in a few that are stainless steel here because those were parts I could get more easily and not have to make in titanium. They aren't really very big parts, so they aren't really very consequential on the weight. And if you look at the website, you'll see for other models that are earlier than this, say for example the Mach 34, there are some parts on that bow that are different than this one, or that don't exist on that one that do on this one. And you'll see less parts and a different price, of course, for that. Most people are probably going to be interested in the Sicario and the Mach 33, the EC2 cam, and the FDS cam. We'll probably get a fair amount of the sales just from those. So I'm focused right now on what this bow requires, and then you'll have to consider that the Mach 30, 33 take the same parts, but the 34 is slightly different. Again, you're going to get what you're supposed to from us, but you won't have as many parts in some cases. That's the best way to put it. So let's dive right into the different pieces here. When you get one of these kits, here's one of the kits packaged up. When you get one, you'll see at the top there's a folded piece of paper. That is the parts list. Now the parts list has the usage on the bow, the material that it's made from, the thread, the drive size, and the number of pieces that you get in the kit. So we're going to go through here, starting with number 1 all the way down to number 11, and I'll talk about where those are on this bow. Again, you will find similarities. If this is a Mach 33, it's going to be exactly the same as what I'm talking about here. If it's a Mach 30, it's going to be exactly the same as what I'm talking about. So part number 1 is the draw stop screws. So I'll rotate the bow around so you can actually see where the draw stop screw is. We'll work on the bottom of the bow. It's a lot easier to deal with than the top. So the draw stop screw already installed. Just keep that in mind. So every screw that I'm going to talk about, every fastener we have here is already installed on the bow. These are the titanium and stainless versions. Now this one is silver titanium. So it might look like it's stainless steel, but it's not. This is actually titanium alloy. It's a very small screw. That's a number 440 screw. So that's the thread. It is a Torx drive. That's a T10 Torx. Now to take off the factory version of that screw, you need to use also a T10. Now, this is the factory steel version of that part. And it's, again, a very small item. You have 2 of these per kit. So you have 1 per draw stop, one's at the top, one's at the bottom. Now, part number 2 would be the cam module screws. But in this case, they're right here. They're easily accessible. These are, again, the titanium version of those. These are T15. So they're Torx 15 drive. If you look at the factory version of that part, we have that right here. Steel. Now, again, also a Torx. So what you'll see with PSE's fasteners is that they have a mixture of Torx and hex. We are also doing that. We have a mixture of Torx and hex here. That one is similar in terms of how tight you should make it. I often will use something like this with a small bit inserted here. So I'll show you what I use to do the cam modules and what I use for draw stops. So I use this. It's magnetic, of course. It holds it in place. And I find that something like this is really pretty ideal for obtaining the right amount of tightness. And it's easy to swap over to the T10 to do the draw stop screws. So that's a good tool to use for things like that. You typically aren't going to need a socket wrench to tighten something like this down. And I don't recommend that for those particular parts, for 1 and 2. So now let's go to number 3. So this is what we call cam axle ends. So they are right here. Now with these, and I didn't mention with the cam mod screws, but there's 4 per kit because you have 2 per cam, 2 cams on a bow. And similar here, you have 2 screws, so 1 on either end of the axle. And of course you have 2 axles, so you have 4 screws. These are also T15s. Let's look at part number 4, and that would be the cable guard riser bracket. So we'll turn the bow around, and there that is. So the riser bracket is a 1-screw assembly. There are 2 pegs, of course, behind there that go into the riser, but we're just replacing that screw. So the factory screw is right here, steel screw, same length, of course, as what we are using here. This is, and I know I didn't mention the threads on the others. I have been mentioning all of the different threads, but you can always refer back to your list. The list has all of the threads. In this case, I will mention what thread it is. It's number 1024. So the size of the screw is a number 10. It's 24 thread. So the drive that you need for this fastener is a 1/8 inch hex. So now we're going to move on to number 5, which is the Picatinny rail sight mount. So the sight mount is here. And we have 2 screws that should be noted. They are the same screw as this. And you'll probably realize that in looking at the kit pretty quickly. So I'll show you right here how we did that. So we started with part 1. So this would be part 2. It's not labeled as such. Part 3, part 4, right? Part 4 was the cable guard screw. Now we're on part 5, which is Picatinny rail mount. We have 2 of those screws. Part 6, we have 2 more of those screws. I'll get to what they are. Part 7, part 8, part 9, part 10, part 11. And part 11 is labeled. So we just did it this way so that we could save you having to use all those additional labels. 2 screws, 1/8 inch drive hex, same as the previous part. Easy enough to do. Pop the old ones out, put the new ones in. Part number 6 is integrated arrow rest mount. Also requires 2 of these number 1024, and I didn't mention this yet, but they're 5/8 inch length screws, 1/8 inch hex drive. Swap those out with the stainless steel version. Part number 7, let's look at that. String stop block mount. So the string stop block is this part right here. This aluminum part that fits in against the riser. That's what I call the string stop block. This is a number T30 drive, so it's a Torx 30. The factory part, interestingly, is very short and really too short in my opinion. I'm not sure, maybe they were using up old fasteners that they had. But even given this size, I'll show you what the size of the one we're using, it's longer. But given how short those threads are, they really don't bite into there very much. This block is also glued in place though, so it's not just the screw that holds it on. The screw really isn't probably doing a whole lot, but nonetheless, I don't like seeing that shallow of thread engagement. So we're giving you a longer screw. This is a 5/8 inch length. So that screw, don't have to tighten down all that much because it isn't really retaining a lot. Another thing I should mention here, that's a complete threaded through part. So you have female thread on both ends here. And you might wonder, well, if I'm using a longer screw, the 5/8 inch, is that going to impede my ability to put a stabilizer in there? Well, let's look. You're right up against here. That's how far in that screw is going to go. There is no stabilizer on earth that requires nearly that level of thread depth. So a stabilizer is only going to come into maybe about here, maybe slightly beyond that even. I've even run a 7/8 inch screw all the way into the front and it still didn't hit this. So that is much more already than is needed. So don't worry about that aspect. So T30, Torx 30, titanium alloy, easy to do. And moving on to part number 8, which is right in front of us as well. Part 8 is the string stop riser rod. And I call it that because that is what it's coming into contact with. It is bumping into that carbon rod right there. So that is a 1/4 28. So it's 28 thread, 1/4 size diameter. Yeah, that's the 1/8. Number 9 is the lower stabilizer bushing. So the lower stabilizer assembly is 3 parts. What you get directly from PSE, the factory part, is a button head alloy steel screw, 1/8 inch hex. It is bonded though. It's bonded with epoxy into this standoff coupler. So this is called a female threaded standoff coupler. It's threaded all the way through. It is threaded with number 1032 thread. So number 10 size screw and 32 thread. In our case, we are using a smaller part, and I'll explain why in a second. So when you get it from PSE out, get this out of here, you'll find that this screw is actually literally bonded in there. And what you need to do to get this out is a little bit complicated, I would say, and it's worth explaining. So what you'll find is you're going to need to attach two tools. So you're going to have a 1/8 inch on both sides. You have to hold one of these sides tight so it doesn't rotate. You'll get the one screw loose, pull that out. Once that screw is pulled out, whichever side that happens to be, then you actually need to transition over to a punch. You need a punch set. Then the whole standoff part comes out. Then it's out of your way, you're done with it. Then you get to transition to our standoff coupler. So this is what I selected for ours. It's lighter, it's better. This is aluminum standoff coupler. This is a stainless, I believe it's stainless steel. So considerably heavier. And then we're using number 832 titanium alloy button heads. So you get a smaller assembly, lighter assembly, still rust free, of course. Now move on to the limb pocket. So the limb pocket is what I consider to be this. Some people have different terms that they use for this. Ours are T25, so Torx 25 drive. The factory part is, in this case, not. The factory part that they had is actually a hex drive, steel piece. So they had hex for theirs. And I'm gonna double check what that was. I believe that was a 532 from them. Yeah, that was a 532 hex drive for the factory part. So ours are T25. 4 parts are included per kit. So again, you can always refer back to the pieces per kit if you're unsure. So here we are, part number 10, limb pocket, and it's 4 pieces. And then the last part, I saved this for last because it is really the most difficult part to put on. What do you do to get them out of there then? Well, you have to press the bow. You have to press the bow. You have to take your cables and string off. Then you can disassemble from there. And you can take those limb bolts out, completely remove them from the barrel nut that's underneath, and you can then reassemble. Here is one of our titanium alloy limb bolts. These things are beautiful. Look how smooth the surface is. So here's the factory steel bolt, and here is the titanium alloy with the black anodized, we're calling it anodizing. It's really a different type of process than anodizing, but that's what I call it. So we have those same length as the factory screws were on this, 2 inch. These are these are actually 3/8 diameter. 3/8 diameter, 24 thread. Now the drive is the same as the factory. These are hex. This is 732 hex. This is also 732 hex. So there you have it. You have all 11 parts. All right, guys, I think that covers it. If there's questions, feel free to reach out. sam@taparchery.com is my email. You can get a hold of me via text pretty much anytime, 717-814-9169. I won't always reply on weekends and at night, but in many cases I do. So taparchery.com is where you find these kits. Again, we have them for as many models as we can offer. I apologize for not having some of the models that people have asked about already, but if I don't own the bow, I can't get access to the information. I've already inquired with PSE, and I'm not able to get master lists from them to go over other models. Basically, I have to just go through the process of finding it on my own. So thanks a lot, guys. Take care.